Just after 12:15 on this Saturday, we are live and local. Good afternoon. Welcome to Central Valley Talk's Weekend Edition. I'm Austin Reed, coming to you live from our Tower District studios and, of course, Fresno's historic Tower District. A quick reminder happening right now, it is Tower Porch Fest. Musicians and artists from all across Central California are hanging out on people's porches across the Tower District until 8 o'clock tonight. Whether it's a business or a home, the entertainment is out there right now. And a quick reminder, here at Central Valley Talk, we are going to be hosting one of the Porch Fests on our porch. Come on by. Olive and Van Ness. We'll be starting at 4 o'clock. And later today on Central Valley Talk, we're going to bring back Jeremy, the organizer of Tower Porch Fest, and he's got a couple of musicians that will join him. So we'll talk more about this throughout the afternoon. In the meantime, let's get the show started. My first guest joining us live via Zoom in Fresno is Dot Jane Powell, a local author. Dot, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's nice to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. Now, by the way, Dot's husband was the former superintendent of the Fresno School District. Is that right?
Well, the Fresno County School.
Fresno County Schools. Wow. And you worked at Ewing School, right?
Yeah.
Ewing Daily School. So tell me a little bit, we were just talking just before the interview about your new book. You can pre-order it now. It's going to be coming out in June, you said, right?
Yes.
So tell us the story. I love it. I heard just a little bit of it, but let's hear more.
Well, it's about 9 little girls that I met when they were students at Ewing. See, first I was the principal at Daly. That's where I met Mike Briggs. His kids went there.
Cool.
But later I was principal at Ewing, and many Hmong families lived in that area, Chestnut and Olive. And it became the largest year-round school at the time and the largest with Hmong population. And they were just all over the place, some speaking English and some learning English. Well, one little girl just followed me around campus one day, and the story is in the book. I got to know her, and she hung on to me for a while, which was great. She came down to the office, she'd find me, and she was very quiet. She wouldn't talk. But over the next month of that year, she would bring a girl. Can I bring so-and-so? Can I bring so-and-so? And gradually, it got up to 9 girls. And they were just fabulous, so interesting, their lives, their personalities. But they ranged from a girl who got playground trouble and got sent to the office, to all the way to a girl who was top of the class, top of the school, reader, so everything that you can imagine. But they all wanted to keep in touch. So when I retired in 2002, a long time ago, that's when their parents gave me a going away party and asked if I'd keep in touch. And I just breathed a prayer like, okay, would you let me take them to church? Yes. So the very next Sunday, I picked up 9 girls, and the story's in the book also. And we went to church, and we went to lunch, and we went to movies in the park. And we named the book the Sunday Van Club, because the van became our clubhouse. On all the hour's drive of picking them up, going all the way to church and all the way home, we would tell stories. They would tell their life stories. I would tell my life story. We would sing songs, just have a great time laughing, and it was marvelous. And I kept taking pictures and making notes, and they kept writing me little notes. And so I kept all of that. I had a big box of all these notes and pictures, and decided to put it into a book, the Sunday Van Club. So I have a portion of this book written down, and they each have a chapter telling their story. And some very happy, and some with bittersweet times, and some with discouragements, and just everything. They were very honest and open about writing their story. And so that's in the book. So I sort of weave it together in a way with my writing, and they're very different lives. So you think, oh, they all have the same kind of life? No, they have very different lives. And it was really a wonderful experience to be able to travel with them. Their parents were immigrants to America, and some of the girls were also, but they were all children of immigrants. Several of my girls were born in the camps in Thailand. You know, Thailand gave refuge to Hmong after the Vietnam War, and they were tents in a big field. And some of them lived there for years and years and years. And one mom said that, you know, she gave birth to like 6 kids in a tent, and they had no running water. So their life in Thailand wasn't easy, but then Thailand wanted them out after a large amount of time. So that's when they looked for ways to get to America. And they had sponsors, support, because the government a long time ago had said they would help the Hmong because they came to the rescue of Americans in the Vietnam War. They sided with them and not the communists. And they said they'll help. So they came, a huge group to Fresno. They landed, I believe, in San Diego and dispersed across the nation to where different agencies were able to spot where they could work. Many of them were farmers, and so they loved the San Joaquin Valley, and they took it, you know, like home, and they believed that they would make a good life. Now, it's hard because some of the dads, especially the fathers, were so torn about leaving their country, leaving their home. They got burned out and shot at by the communists, and they had many relatives who died. And in their homes, they have pictures of, say, this man, he was shot, where he was shot, this man, where he was shot. And young men, young in the war, but they still honored them. But the girls got through all of that. Now we have medical technologists, executive assistants, teachers, nurse, mathematicians. I mean, one of the girls works for the IRS, but so you know I have to be careful.
Well, it's just a story. It's a story that I'm sure really isn't heard about in many other parts of the country because of, at least our country, because of Fresno's connection to the Hmong community. We have so many Hmong men and women here in Fresno alone.
Yes, very, very many. And it was originally the largest group of Hmong, and then how they dispersed. They went to Minnesota, up in Northern California. It was farmland or industry where they could adapt to working, say, an assembly line, things like that. And then they spread different pockets of them all over Arizona, like that. But for a long time, Fresno had the greatest population, and the Hmong New Year was founded here. And people from all over the world, really, France and Argentina, would come here for Hmong New Year celebration at our fairgrounds. And now, that was in the start, in late 90s, I would say. And now they're spread out in many cities all over. And these girls all became professional but they could see that in their own culture, women were expected to have babies early in the home back in Vietnam. But they saw that here they needed to get an education and get a job. Some girls were forced. None of mine were, but I talked to some girls who were forced to, even here, get married and have kids right away. So some went ahead and went to school after that. So it's like a different cultural thing. They're wonderful people. They're so gracious. It's like the great American success story.
Yeah.
They came with nothing and just put up in apartments that I would consider pretty rough living.
Yeah.
Like, they thought it was marvelous because they lived in a tent for like 10 years. So their parents rejoiced in the facilities. I mean, they had housing where they could be in shelter. They had running water, which they probably had never seen before. And just interesting how they learned what a bathtub's for, what a dishwasher does, stuff like that.
The things that we take really for granted.
Yeah. And they love America. They just tell us, we're so thrilled to be here. I know that there's some, the men who have some regrets, especially one of my girls who tells the story in the book. He would be sitting with the eyes looking far off into the distance. And when he would talk about back home, how he wants to go. He wants to get some friends together and all go back to Vietnam. Well, just, telling him it's not feasible, it's not good, you'll be taken captive by the communists or whatever. So he's still here and grieving. They have a long period of grief of leaving their land and their home. But I was so thrilled to be in the part where we get to see them developing. I would go to their homes and they would offer me food or showing me the pictures on the wall. And it was very interesting. And of course, I didn't know all the cultures. The girls had brought me sticky rice, the rice that's
together. I love that.
And I loved it. So one time Absolutely. I was in a home and they were having sticky rice and some kind of meat. Father asked, motioned to me, do I want some? Not speaking English. He reached in the bowl with all the rice with his hand and put the rice on my plate. And then the meat, he just put his hand in the dish and put it. Fine. I went ahead and ate everything. I had no clue what that meat was. But it was just a neat experience. They were gracious. They wanted me to stay. And one father showed me the boots that he had worn in the war when he was like a teenager. And he kept the boots. And it's just so heart-wrenching to see what their sacrifice. And they were just content farmers living in the hills of Vietnam and Laos, growing rice. But then they came to a much more complicated world, but to save their lives, to save their children's lives. They're very high on education. The parents want the kids to go to school. And today, many Hmong are professionals. They're doctors and lawyers and teachers and administrators and engineers and city council members and pilots and air control.
The list goes on.
Yeah, and some maybe that they wouldn't have had a chance at all in Vietnam and Southeast Asia, but here they have great opportunities, and I'm so glad to see many of them. These adapted so quickly, but they did have struggles. Like if they couldn't speak English when they came to school, there wasn't a lot of support for, Hmong non-English speakers at first. There were a lot of support for Spanish speakers, but it became better as the years went by. But they had teachers, some had teachers who didn't understand, and some had teachers who did understand and took their needs and met their needs at their level. And they tell us in the stories that what spurred them on, what encouraged them, the teachers and they had no written language in Hmong. They didn't know about it, but they would just hear their parents talk and they would talk Hmong. And so the very educated Hmong did have a written language. I guess it was developed way back by missionaries or the French that came there. Wow. It was rudimentary. It wasn't a big dictionary, I guess, but there was a form of written language, but it wasn't taught to younger people and students and the poor and that sort of thing. So they could speak in Hmong, they learn to speak English and they learn to read English, read and write. And it's just marvelous. And for all of them that, forged ahead, they had persistence, they had determination, and they didn't fall through the cracks, I think. I didn't work with boys that much in this whole 2 decades of working with these girls. But the few times I talked to some of the boys and the men, they seemed to have a rougher time. They were coming from a culture where the male is dominant and expected to be obeyed and followed, to a culture where men and women are equal, and it was hard for some of them to adapt, and it took a while. And so they might be seemingly cruel to their kids because that's the way their fathers were back in Southeast Asia. But then they saw that that wasn't proper, and their daughters started telling them. See, the daughters were learning English really fast. They would interpret for their parents at school and for the doctors and the courts, and they would start telling their parents that parents don't, boss like we used to, like you used to in Vietnam. You're here, it's more equal, talk it over. It was very hard for some of the men. And, but I saw the women blossom, and, they had great talents of stitchery and embroidery type of stuff and beautiful jewelry they could make from silver. And they were just so talented. So I did see these mothers of these kids start to blossom, most of them. And I love.
I was just going to say, Dot, we're running out of time. I've got about a minute left. I want everybody to learn on how they can get the book and the exact date.
Well, they could go right now on Amazon or Barnes & Noble and pre-order one. Just put in the Sunday Van Club in those organizations, and it'll come up and it'll say pre-order, and it gives you choices of hardback, paperback, Kindle, and something, and then it'll be sent to you when the books come out, and we believe it's about the middle of June. Her
Facebook.
And my Facebook for the page starts out with author D.J.B. Powell, Facebook. That's for Facebook.
Perfect.
If they want to see a page in Facebook.
Yeah, everything's there. Yeah, we're actually we're looking at the Amazon page, I think, right now. Yeah, on the right hand side of you, and yeah, very easy. People can order it now. I'd love to read the book as well, so I'll have to check it out. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
All right, Dot, thank you so much for joining us here on Central Valley Talk. Great conversation.
Thank you, Austin. It was great being here with you.
Good to meet you. Come back anytime, okay?
Oh, I love it. Thank you. I might one of my girls, okay?
That would be great. Yeah, that would be awesome. I would love that. That would be, especially maybe like in June, right before it's going to launch.
Oh, thank you. That would be great.
Let's do it. Perfect. All right. From Mike Briggs, he wanted to say hi to your husband. So just a quick reminder there. All right. Thanks again. Take care. You're watching Central Valley Talk. We're back with Tower Porch Fest in just a couple of minutes. Stay with us.